The film opens by showing a group of terrorists taking hostages to a remote island. They plan to execute the hostages one by one because the U.S. government still hasn't agreed to their demands. However, without them realizing it, the sniper team led by Colonel Dennis has already been secretly preparing from a distance. As soon as the hostages are lined up, a sniper named Brandon gets a chance to take out the terrorist leader right away. But instead of taking the shot, Brandon suddenly hesitates when he notices a young child. The commander on the ground, Captain Miller, repeatedly tells Brandon to take the opportunity, until finally...
Rampage, take the shot, now.
Page, milk the motherfucker.
The fucking shot!
Since Brandon still doesn't take the shot, his teammate eventually takes over. Unfortunately, the shot misses. As a result, their position is immediately exposed, and the terrorists quickly return fire. Fortunately, the military has already prepared a backup plan, allowing them to put up a fairly even fight against the terrorists. Toward the end of the battle, several terrorists are seen trying to escape, but the sniper team can't stop them because they're too far away. Because of this, Colonel Dennis immediately launches a drone to wipe out the remaining terrorists. This mission by the U.S. Navy sniper team could be considered a complete mess. The terrorists have already reported the battle to their headquarters. Meanwhile, one of the hostages has become a victim in the incident. Lieutenant Brandon feels guilty about what happened, while Captain Miller tries to warn him not to disobey orders again.
We're in the business of one time.
I'll get him next time.
The next day, Brandon is at a restaurant enjoying lunch before heading home. However, what should have been a fairly peaceful atmosphere starts to become uncomfortable when Brandon's fellow sniper brings up his behavior during yesterday's mission, which he considers too naive. Feeling uncomfortable, Brandon decides to step outside the restaurant just to clear his mind. At that moment, Brandon accidentally meets a beautiful woman who slowly begins to catch his attention. Brandon then tries to approach her.
Wrong way.
At the same time, Brandon has no idea that an unknown sniper is targeting his head. Fortunately, Brandon survives because the sniper's attempt is quickly stopped by Major Bidwell.
Excuse me.
It's outside of the bridge.
Bidwell?
At the same time, the woman suddenly disappears while Brandon is taking a call from the Major. As Brandon's former sniper instructor, Bidwell is quite concerned about what happened during yesterday's mission. Bidwell tries to advise Brandon that in the world they live in, orders and conscience often conflict with each other. Besides giving Brandon advice, Major Bidwell also brings news that the terrorists have put a bounty on Brandon, dead or alive.
Good. Gotta find the blues and the greens, Gunny.
Trigger to target. Life and death.
A few hours later, Colonel Dennis gathers everyone and cancels their trip home. Recently, a major American oil company has been planning to expand its pipeline network across the borders of several countries. Their team has been asked to provide security because some of the planned pipeline routes pass through dangerous areas that are often targeted by terrorist attacks. Since the pipeline will cross 4 borders, their team will work with the country of Georgia because the other 3 countries are enemies of the United States. Not long after, a representative from the Georgian military finally arrives and joins the briefing. But unexpectedly, the representative turns out to be the same woman Brandon met earlier. Her name is Robin. With her arrival, the information about the area they will be guarding becomes more complete. Robin then introduces a terrorist leader who will also become their target, named Gazikov. The military has been trying to capture him for 5 years, but the highly militant Gazikov has always managed to escape whenever the authorities surround him. For their first mission, the sniper team will be assigned tomorrow to guard an important meeting between executives from the American company and several tribal leaders. The plan is for them to negotiate over the land that will be purchased, while the sniper team is assigned to protect them from a distance throughout the negotiation process.
Smart enough to tell which rock you guys took a piss against.
Protect all this high ground.
List on the package. 1900 tonight.
He travels with Blackwater
As discussed in yesterday's briefing, the sniper team begins providing security for the negotiations taking place today. The Georgian military helps the sniper team by deploying drones to monitor enemy movements from the air. Brandon and the other team members are now positioned at several locations while searching for the terrorists. The situation starts to become more tense as the American company executives approach the meeting location. In fact, because the area is so dangerous, the company executive even hires several mercenaries to protect them at close range. But unexpectedly, the terrorists manage to launch an attack from an unexpected direction.
This is suicide.
I think I'm seeing something.
From there, Gazikov immediately splits up from his men to target the snipers who came from America. Brandon and his teammates are still trying to process what's happening when suddenly
Incoming fire from like 2 o'clock.
Nothing on glass, man. No fucking joy.
Once again, Gazikov's attack is extremely difficult to predict. 3 of Brandon's teammates have already been killed, while the remaining snipers still can't locate Gazikov. Colonel Dennis, who is monitoring the situation from headquarters, immediately launches a drone strike against Gazikov's men to disrupt the enemy's focus. Because of what happened, Brandon can't hold back his anger toward the Georgian soldiers. Brandon accuses someone on their side of being a traitor because, in his opinion, there's no way the enemy could have found the snipers' positions that quickly. For some context, Brandon's sniper team is an elite unit with extensive experience in their field. Whenever they take positions during a mission, each of them always considers many factors, including choosing locations that make it difficult for the enemy to find them. But what happened earlier was completely unexpected. How could the enemy take out 3 snipers in less than 5 minutes? Brandon accuses someone in the Georgian military of leaking their coordinates, allowing Gazikov to easily launch the attack.
What exactly are you trying to?
It was an impossible shot, feeding our coordinates to Gazikov.
As the situation becomes more heated, Captain Miller tries to calm Brandon down, reminding him that the person he's yelling at holds a higher rank, a colonel. But Brandon, already furious, keeps bombarding him with all kinds of insults.
You're forgetting about the 2 body bags loaded with the Marine?
Honor, courage, commitment.
You killed him!
Because of his behavior yesterday, Brandon is eventually sent away to the border to join the Georgian soldiers. The place where he's now stationed is only a few hundred meters away from a secret route commonly used by terrorists. Brandon's presence isn't welcomed by the soldiers there because word about him yelling at a superior has already spread everywhere. The fight only stops when the post commander, Major Mashkov, shows up and breaks it up. As a senior officer, Major Mashkov gives Brandon some advice about accusing the Georgian soldiers without any evidence. If there really is evidence, they'll definitely accept it. But if there isn't, Brandon's words will only insult their loyalty. As the day approaches dusk, Brandon and the Georgian soldiers finally patrol the area around the border. They quickly discover several terrorists who are smuggling illegal weapons. Major Mashkov intends to execute them immediately, but Brandon, with his cocky attitude, wants something different. According to him, it would be better to capture the terrorists so they can be interrogated. Major Mashkov, not wanting to argue, finally lets Brandon carry out his idea. It also serves as a lesson for Brandon about why Major Mashkov, who has years of experience guarding the area, prefers to kill the enemy from a distance.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker!
Help me.
Don't do it! Welcome to the wild, wild east.
That night, after they return to base, Major Mashkov shares an experience with Brandon that is closely related to the mission at the beginning of the film. About 13 years ago, when Major Mashkov had just become a sniper, he once found himself in a situation that left him facing a dilemma. A young child suddenly appeared and approached his troops while they were resting. Major Mashkov had a feeling that the child would bring trouble, so he intended to kill him. But before he could do it, his conscience stopped him. Unfortunately, Major Mashkov's decision at the time ended up having fatal consequences. Because of that incident, 8 of his friends were killed in a suicide bombing.
Fabricated from my humanity.
Major Mashkov feels extremely guilty about what happened. Since that day, his time serving in the military has become very difficult. The next day, one of the soldiers spots dozens of terrorists moving nearby. Major Mashkov suspects they're going to attack the base because his side managed to capture Gazakov's younger cousin the day before. Without wasting any time, the troops immediately get ready. Meanwhile, Brandon moves to higher ground and gets into position with his sniper rifle.
I'll be here. That's what they want you to think.
The large number of terrorists begins to overwhelm the Georgian troops. The situation gets worse when the enemy starts using RPGs to launch counterattacks. Even Brandon's position becomes a target because he has already fired dozens of shots. Toward the end of the battle, Brandon still manages to survive and starts targeting the enemy again with his weapon. The terrorists are seen slowly approaching the base until they finally manage to capture Major Mashkov. From there, they intend to behead Mashkov. However, Brandon manages to stop them with his shooting skills. After all the enemies have been taken down, Brandon thanks Major Mashkov for all the advice he has given him over the past few days. The doubts that used to trouble Brandon frequently are now starting to disappear. This is when Major Mashkov finally tells Brandon that he's allowed to rejoin his team. But before returning to the main team, Brandon asks Major Mashkov for help arranging a meeting with Gazakov. Brandon wants to prove his theory. Is there really a traitor among the Georgian soldiers? Or at the very least, Brandon wants to see what kind of device Gazakov used that allowed him to quickly locate his teammates during yesterday's mission. To make it happen, Major Mashkov introduces Brandon to a blind man named Robert. Robert will act as an intermediary to arrange a meeting with Gazakov. They'll use the excuse that they want to deliver the ashes of Gazakov's cousin, who was killed in yesterday's battle.
We blew him to bits.
Trade for it. Quid pro quo.
No, it's not.
The next day, Brandon and Robert climb a hill to meet Gazakov. When they finally meet the maestro, Brandon doesn't see anything strange or different about the weapon Gazakov has been using. However, his attention is briefly drawn to one of Gazakov's men, who has been looking at the screen of a special device. At the same time, Colonel Dennis is monitoring Gazakov's movements through satellite imagery. As soon as he sees an opportunity, Colonel Dennis immediately launches a drone strike to take him down. Colonel Dennis has absolutely no idea that one of his men is currently near Gazakov. The appearance of the drone suddenly makes the ongoing negotiation extremely tense.
You forget yourself, American.
After returning to the base, Brandon is immediately criticized by Robin because she considers his actions extremely reckless. However, Brandon denies the accusation because he now knows how the terrorists were able to find their location so quickly. Based on what he observed earlier, Gazakov's forces seem to have managed to hack the drone system using a jamming device bought on the black market. Unfortunately, Robin doesn't believe his explanation. Even Colonel Dennis gives the same response.
Somebody want to tell me what the fuck is going on?
They're watching our drone surveillance live feed somehow.
Honorary Sergeant Beckett, do you want to be taken out of the...
Knowing that his superiors are ignoring his findings, Brandon decides to follow his teammates who are guarding a hill. Brandon is convinced that Gazakov is now ready with his weapon and hacking device. At the same time, Brandon's prediction turns out to be correct because the terrorist leader is launching attacks on all the soldiers around him, both American and Georgian. Throughout the battle, Captain Miller is confused by how precisely the terrorists are able to attack every soldier and sniper on his team. Fortunately, before they're all killed, Brandon finally shows up and tells his team to take off the vest they're wearing. Brandon believed the enemy can track their positions because the vests used by his team have GPS devices that are directly connected to the drone's camera system. After that, the battle starts to become more evenly matched. The soldiers slowly manage to approach Gazakov's position and intend to capture him immediately. Unfortunately, by the time they get there, the terrorist leader has already escaped, causing the operation to capture Gazakov to fail once again. After everything that happened, Colonel Dennis finally starts investigating whether Brandon's theory about the drone being hacked is actually true. But before the theory can be proven, the sniper team will now operate without using GPS devices. The next morning, Colonel Dennis leads an emergency meeting after movement from Gazakov's forces is detected. Based on drone surveillance, the terrorists are gathering at one of the refineries and preparing to launch an attack. Colonel Dennis then asks Captain Miller to once again lead his troops in helping the Georgian soldiers fight the enemy. At this point, an argument breaks out because Captain Miller asks the Georgian military not to fly the drone. However, Robin and a Georgian colonel named Babiev, whom Brandon had previously confronted, still insist on flying it. They continue to deny that their military equipment has been successfully hacked by the terrorists.
Haven't done it already? Remove your GPS. We don't make the missions, we execute.
Meanwhile, Gazakov is pleased because his plan is working perfectly. The forces previously spotted by the drone are actually just a diversion. Their main target for today's mission is the oil refinery that also serves as Colonel Dennis's headquarters. Without hesitation, they immediately launch their attack. This is when Robin finally realizes that what Brandon said was true. Meanwhile, Brandon manages to convince Captain Miller to turn back toward their base. Brandon is certain that Gazakov's main target today is their headquarters, not the small oil refinery located in the border village. As soon as they arrive, Miller and his troops immediately launch an attack to turn the situation around. In this situation, Brandon focuses on only one main target, the terrorist leader, whom Brandon believes is hiding somewhere. After his two spotters are taken out, Gazakov immediately changes position and launches another counterattack. His effort pays off because Brandon's teammate right beside him is grazed by a bullet. Brandon himself doesn't move when he hears his friend asking for help because this is his only chance to get revenge. With Gazakov dead, the terrorist brutal attack finally comes to an end. Brandon's injured friend is immediately taken to the hospital. Meanwhile, Captain Miller personally praises Brandon's intelligence for successfully killing Gazakov. Since their mission is successful, Brandon and his teammates celebrate by having a meal together at a restaurant. Not long after, Colonel Dennis suddenly shows up and asks Brandon to come outside. It turns out Robin is already waiting out front after coming all the way there to apologize. The film finally comes to an end.